Hi guys, welcome back to We Are Tottenham TV. This is the post-match fan show after the Tottenham 0, Arsenal 1 North London derby. I've actually just seen a comment from somebody who's written and said, "Come, hurry up, let the meltdown begin." Obviously, myself and Marlon, we've been watching the watch along all day. Very frustrated performance. I said at the end of the post-match reaction, I think we were basically slightly bullied, slightly out-muscled, conceded a goal in exactly the way you'd probably expect us to concede a goal. We didn't cut them open. They didn't cut us open. They were better at the kind of dark arts, more professional, I would call it. Something that Spurs, since the kind of halcyon days of Pochettino, haven't been very good at. And obviously we're in the middle of this, in inverted commas, painful rebuild. And we've got a lot of young players. And there just didn't seem, certainly when we went 1-0 down, there didn't seem any likelihood whatsoever that we would get back into that. So very frustrating. Marlon, before we bring on the first guest, anything to add?
I think you've summed it up very well. I think as a fan base, we're going to have we're going to have arguments all week, all of us, because like you said earlier, it's all about patience. It all depends on what stage we're all at as fans of when we said this rebuild was going to start. Yeah. If people are going back from Poch, they're 7 years in. If people are doing it when Ange came in, you're a year and a bit in. Yeah. So I don't think either side can't go at each other. We need to kind of stick together. It's the club have shown this summer, because I said that everyone else improved. We kind of just got brought in young players, but only one of them's only one signing seems to be a first team player. It was never going to be all smooth sailing. But it's just, this will hurt more right now because it's them.
Yeah, and 4 points from a possible 12 isn't a great start. We're actually going to get our first guest in. Yeah. I think he looks ready for us. Sam at Spurs Undercover. Sam, can you hear us?
Yeah, guys, I can hear you.
Yes, mate.
Great shirt, by the way. Probably inept for how bad we played today in the second half.
I know. It's literally the first time I've worn it during a game as well. It's not done me well. I'm not gonna lie.
So, Sam, where are you sitting on the suicidometer? What do you got to say about that defeat?
Well, I think if 1 is the suicide and 10 is elation, I think I'm out of 4.
Right.
So I'm obviously fuming that we've lost this game, especially considering the context surrounding it. I'll admit I was thinking we were going to win this 3-1. I saw them scoring. But I just thought, we're going to have too much for them in terms of, we'll have the press in the midfield. Obviously, Basuma being out was a bit of a miss for us, not necessarily because he would have maybe started over Bentancur, but it just meant that we couldn't really change the midfield in that regard. And then Bentancur getting booked so early on just meant that we were walking a tightrope the whole game. I thought that Solanke was going to be getting more service. I don't blame him. I mean, admittedly, I'm not really sure what he was doing with that chance that kind of fell to him. But yeah, I mean, we shoot ourselves in the foot all the time. We don't play to our strengths, and I don't want to say I'm not Ange out, but I'm definitely reaching the end of my tether with it. I'm not going to lie.
So where do you look? If it's crossed your mind, where would you go next? If Daniel Levy said this is too much, the run since the first 10 games of last season has been too poor. We don't actually have our Tottenham back like he claimed we do. Sam, where do you go next manager-wise? Because that's the thing for me is I just don't see at this point where the replacement is. Whereas in previous times where we sacked managers, there've always been kind of a queue of options. And if you look at other clubs, look at Man United as an example. Literally tried to sack their manager just before the cup final and spoke to loads of other managers and were like, oh, actually, I'm not sure any of them are any better.
No, look, I agree. The depth of managers to kind of call upon is lacking severely. That is true. I think that's why I'm also not really definitely saying I want him gone. I just think that you can argue that we didn't back him sufficiently in the window. I think that was evident considering that that was probably, maybe other than Bissouma, that was our first choice starting 11, right?
Right.
With obviously Solanke coming in. You got your first choice back four. You got the goalkeeper. You know, you can argue whether you would play Maddison and Kulu or Maddison and Sarr as the 2-8s. I personally would have gone with Kulu today. I think that was the right choice. I just think
thought he played
that,
well, actually. I thought he played all right.
yeah, I agree. He had good glimpses. You know, he had a couple chances, the long shot, and he had that one in the first half where he sort of danced through a couple players and got a snapshot off. But I just think that we don't play to our strengths, and I mean that in the sense of we play this unconventional inverting of the fullbacks, and sort of since I've been on the kind of podcast scene, I've kind of been banging this drum that I don't think it works to constantly invert both your fullbacks. And you've got a player in Pedro Porro who is arguably one of the best players on the ball in our team for sure, but also in the league. I think he's almost second to none in that regard. And we have him playing effectively kind of as like one of our 8s / like centre forwards at time. And I think that he needs to be playing on the wing. At one point in the game, I thought maybe the sub might have been Johnson off for Spence and push Porro to that right wing so that he could get those balls into Solanke.
Yeah, that's what Marlon said at the time, actually, yeah.
Well, I think it's just a lot of fans can see that our system relies on players getting the ball into the box. And I don't know about you guys. I don't think I could name one specific instance where the ball actually reached one of our targets in the box, other than the short corner we took in the second half where Maddison crossed it in and Van der Ven got the flick. But other than that, I couldn't really tell you one other instance where the ball didn't sail over everyone in the box, even when we had 5 players in the box.
Just the one in the first half where Kulusevski whipped it in towards the far post and Raya had to make a save on it. And kind of Solanke, I think in the end, made the right decision to kind of just let it go, thinking that maybe the keeper wouldn't follow the arc of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that when my biggest concern really, and it sort of goes back on my point about the window, is when he took Maddison off, it's like, what do you actually have to go and change the game? I mean, maybe it would have been too big a call to bring Bergvall on for Bentancur, for Maddison.
Yeah.
But bringing on Timo Werner, like, I'm not even necessarily a huge Timo hater, you know. I don't think he's the guy for us. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But when you're gonna, like, what's his name? Martin O'Neill. Is he the Wolves manager?
No, Gary O'Neill.
Gary O'Neill. That's it.
Yeah.
He set it up on Monday Night Football. Here's how you play against Tottenham, and basically every single team since then has effectively studied that and come the exact same way. I mean, this was pretty much to a T how Newcastle played against us last week, right?
Yeah.
And it's so obvious that what's going to happen. It was almost like when that corner went out, I had this really painful, overwhelming feeling of, oh, we're going to concede from this.
Yeah.
And when it went in, I didn't even react. I just knew, you know, that's us done. And then he takes off Maddison, brings on Werner, and when Werner comes on, he's a player that thrives in space, and teams don't give us space. So I didn't really understand what that sub was all about, to be honest.
I actually, Sam, I completely agree with you on that. And I said it at the time during the watch-along. I actually really feared that when Werner was coming on, like, there might be a reaction from the crowd, because I think everybody understands at that point, you know, I don't doubt that they're getting the readings that saying Madders is entering the red zone and is, you know, he's hitting the line in terms of being fatigued, right? But it's the last 10 minutes of the North London derby, and if you want someone over the ball, kind of to whip a ball in, or if you get a free kick outside the box or whatever, you want Madders on that. And then I agree. So at that point, I would have kept Madders on anyway, and I would have brought on Bergvall to play alongside Madders and alongside Kulusevski, who could have made some little 2 and 3 touch or 1, 2 and 3 touch triangles and move Arsenal about a little bit and get some good crosses in. And I completely agree with you in terms of if you're bringing Werner on, if you're 1-0 up against them and they're pushing on you and there's space in behind, that's where you want him, because he's a good, you know, he's decent at making a yard for himself and a good left foot crosser, and he's half decent at getting in on the back post at the other side. So there are just some weird decisions there, and then I would also suggest. Sorry, just one more thing. I would also just suggest that there's just some consistent over this season so far bad decision making amongst the front three that was happening again and again today as well. In terms of we were calling for more crosses to go in the box, but not just little limp, dinked crosses. That you've got to get in the right position and whip them in at pace if you're going to beat players like Gabriel and Saliba and. The only time we did that was that one I mentioned, I think, was the Deki Kulusevski one in the first half. Anyone, Marlon, you want to...
I was going to ask Sam, right? Because you seem a bit frustrated with subs today. But I was going to ask, because obviously we'll talk about the transfer window, but actually in today's game, what was more frustrating for you? Was it the set piece we conceded, or was it actually the subs that Ange ended up putting on afterwards? Because they both, in isolation, had massive effects on the game.
Yeah, look, I mean, conceding a set piece is obviously frustrating. I will say that is our first set piece conceded of the season, and is that a saving grace? Not really.
That's the first one they've scored as well, by the way. That's the first one Arsenal scored this season as well.
I heard that on the Rivals show the other day, and I was thinking, that's quite interesting, because I can't remember what his name was. I think his name was Hooks on the Rivals show. He was talking about how Declan Rice is usually the set piece taker.
Yeah.
And his delivery is much better than Saka's, and he was arguing that Saka's delivery had actually not been great. And then obviously, just to our luck, he puts in a perfect corner.
After about the fourth one, though, it was,
Actually, this is where, sorry, Sam, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is where I will come on a bit strong. It's not that good a delivery, because for me, anything in the keeper's 6-yard box right in front of him, he has to plough through everybody. And which I mean, literally push them out the way and get something on it. That is his job.
But for Arsenal, that's what that delivery there is is their bread and butter. What they rely on.
All the more reason that he has to be fighting it.
But for us, what I think from what Hooks and what you're trying to say there, that's what Saka wasn't doing with those corners in the first. He was putting them on the front post and whatnot. So the first decent delivery was always going to be the big, massive test for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to say here. The first decent one he puts in after he's been rubbish all season with them, this was the end result. So it just meant that actually, my question to you is, have Spurs learnt from their set pieces, or was it a case of today we've finally come up against a team that can actually play set pieces? Because I know Everton was the other team, but they didn't have Braithwaite, which is a very key to their system.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, that Everton game, at the end of the first half, we were under quite considerable pressure, if I remember correctly. They had sort of 3 or 4 chances and then a bit of a goal-mouth scramble where I think Maddison ended up making 2 crucial headers to get the ball away. So I don't think we have learnt from our set pieces. I mean, we've definitely changed a little bit in terms of we're not just defending a zonal marking, which I don't know about everyone, but I thought that was just criminal to be doing zonal marking. I remember seeing teams doing it as I sort of grew up watching football, thinking, what are these guys doing? I mean, that's awful. And then to be one of those teams that does it was devastating. Admittedly, I still see, like, in the game, you're watching Maddison mark Ben White, and I know that Ben White's their disruptor, but I mean, surely that's a mismatch, right?
I think he's just trying to block. I think he's trying to block the blocks, right? But I would just add one more thing if we're going to just finish this conversation about the set pieces. In 2 of the games, Dragusin was playing, and he's correct.
A monster. He's a monster in the air.
He loves it in the air, and so we missed him. But also, of course, you play Romero and Van de Ven. You do, so it's difficult.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I do actually think. I did notice, not necessarily on the set pieces, but I thought that Van de Ven was actually quite good in the air today, where normally that is a bit of his problem is I don't think he's, considering how big he is, he's never that dominating. But I thought he did quite well against Havertz. Like their system was obviously, like most teams, just to set up and try and do long ball counter, and I thought he actually did quite well. But admittedly, I thought that his decision making this game, Van de Ven, was not great, and actually, to be honest, a lot of our players didn't have great decision making. But we play into teams' hands by trying to play out the back. I'm not saying I don't want to play out the back, but you know, there was one chance that Arsenal had we played it along the back like 2 or 3 times, and then it went back to Vicario. He tried to play a long ball. It went to Ben White. He played one pass, and they were in behind for a potential chance, and I think they won a corner off that. And you're just inviting this pressure, which is frustrating. Obviously, you've brought in Solanke, and he's also better in the air. And I thought Solanke had quite a good game today, other than that one chance. I'm sure he'll get criticism on Twitter for missing that chance, but he did kind of all he could do. You know, he had good hold up play. He brought players in. He made a nuisance of himself. We just didn't find him enough, and I think that's ultimately where the frustration lies. That you don't capitalize on their frailties in terms of a lack of mobility in midfield with Partey and Jorginho, and Odegaard's lack of precision up front. So it's frustrating, and I'm here kind of after the game. Now, I actually thought I was going to be more angry on this stream, to be fair, but I've kind of talked myself off the ledge, if I'm honest.
Sam, I appreciate you calling in, mate. I want to give you a chance to end with some positivity. We're going to turn over Coventry in the Carabao Cup, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. Look, and I think the one positive I've taken from the game is we didn't concede a counter-attack. I know we conceded a corner, but we didn't concede the bread and butter goal that we concede practically every game or every other game. So I will say that we limited them to few chances. They just are clinical, and that's the frustration at the moment. As much as we hate to admit it, they're a good team, and this was always going to be a tough test, but there wasn't going to be a better chance for us to play them in terms of lineups, and them not actually being in the greatest of form, contrary to what the table actually shows. But it wasn't to be, and we go on next week and we smash Coventry. That's how it has to be.
That's it. My prediction is if we win all 34 of the remaining Premier League games, we'll have a shot at the title. Sam, thank you so much for calling in, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries, guys.
Have a great rest of your day, mate. Let's try and find... I don't know. Sam talked himself off the ledge, so that's good. But let's see if there's somebody we can speak to who may be less keen to talk himself off the ledge. Brian, how are you, mate?
Mate, same shit, different day. What can we say about it, mate? What can we say? How are you two?
Good, Brian. Good as we can be, personally. Spurs-wise.
I'm bummed. So tell me what you saw from that game from where you were watching, Brian.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say exactly what Dan Kelly said after Newcastle. Good teams play bad and win. So surely a team like us that play well in patches, which we did, and lose, that needs to be looked at as a thing that needs to be addressed. But we'll talk about it as in, we played so well in patches, we were just unlucky, the crosses didn't get to the people. We've got to stop doing this. We had periods of sustained pressure. We created opportunities. We don't capitalise. We have a fear of shooting outside the box until the final 5 minutes. And what is this passing every single time we're around the penalty area? Someone like James Maddison lost all confidence in his shooting ability. He'll just keep passing it on. Son would normally cut in and ping one into the top corner. He'll take an extra putt. We're too scared to shoot from outside the box.
Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I felt like I have to say this is a topic where I'd say I have to, I'm afraid, give some credit to Arsenal, who just had bodies in the way. They were so narrow and had bodies in the way all the time. So that's why it felt to me like they were always trying to play an extra pass. I mean, me and Marlon were talking about how all the second half, I felt that Son Heung-min was actually kind of slightly selfishly in completely the wrong position because he just wanted to get the ball outside the box and try and have a shot, and we never kind of found him in the position that he wanted that from until right at the very end. The other thing I'd say just about the shooting outside the box, in fact, I think Spurs got a bit of stick last week against Newcastle for having too many shots from outside the box. I think it was something like 11. But I do understand what you're talking about. I mean, in terms of the bigger picture, Brian, where you tend to be quite forthright about how you feel about the project and stuff. Is this another example for you of Ange Postecoglou being kind of out-coached? Yeah,
listen, he is getting out-coached. like I said, I still will never turn my back on the manager, and I'm not starting here. I'm not starting now. But there's certain things that do need to be addressed. There's the sustainment. When we are, he needs to drop back and soak up pressure. His substitutions again at times were strange. And then you look at it. If he wanted Graham Bergvall so badly,
that is interesting. Yeah.
Well,
That's
I mean,
interesting.
I wanted Archie Gray. He was my number one target. He's the one I wanted. Well, where is he? Where Bergvall? I mean, Bergvall for Madison would have made a lot more sense to me. For a bit of creativity, why is he not getting the moments? And I go back to Barnaby where you were saying with the long shooting. You may be right with Newcastle, but it's like we have a fear. And the other thing, the major thing for me, is we started that first 10 minutes, we looked electric. We looked like we were bang up for it. We looked like, do you know what? We're actually going to put a shift in today. But that's a 0-0. But when it got to the final 10 minutes or stoppage, whatever, you're 1-0 down in a North London derby, your home opener, there's nothing. Let's pass the ball sideways. Let's pass it backwards to pass it sideways. There's hardly... Did you not see the lack of movement? There's a lot of lack of movement within our team. There's other teams that are just fluid, passing it around and always finding space. We just spend too long on the ball, individually.
So, Brian, is this down to Ange's tactics, or is this the players not understanding Ange's tactics?
Mate, do you know what? I'm starting to get really confused with that question. Do you know what? No, honestly, like I said, I'm still backing Ange, but you've got to look at it now. To start off with, you would say the players aren't getting it, and when you had Solanke out, Van der Ven out, it's not the full team. They haven't had all the games together, whatever. But when the same mistakes keep happening, then you've got to ask yourself: is it the players that just aren't doing it? And if they aren't doing it,
yeah.
Why is Ange not saying, right, you're not doing it, I'm going to bring someone else in that will? Or are the players just not listening to instructions? Or are the players not even capable of listening to the instructions?
It's very frustrating because I agree with everything you guys are saying. I just think, unfortunately today, I personally think we were just beaten by a better team. I'm not suggesting that Arsenal ripped us apart. They didn't rip us apart. But in terms of what it took to win that game, and it was a game that they knew they had to win because they couldn't afford to be 5 points behind Man City, they just showed their experience of the last few years, that experience of Arteta has learned that in those difficult games, he's got to basically play Conte ball, but with an even tighter defence.
So my question is to you, Brian, and all Spurs fans.
Yep.
Would they rather see Ange and it's a whole attacking football for 38 games where you're going to get a lot of ups and downs like this? Or would you rather see Ange be a bit more streetwise when we are playing the better sides, that we do what Arteta's doing and have a bit of defensive stability in us?
So what I'll say to that, Marlon brother, is you look at it, and we wanted, or the Spurs fan base in majority, wanted to get away from the Jose ball, the Conte ball, it was boring and whatever, which is fair. Mm-hmm. But you then get the attacking manager. The attacking manager starts doing it, and now you're upset because we're not doing what Jose and Conte are doing. But what I will say on the other side is, I will say on it again, another reason I won't back the manager, I will back the manager and not turn on the manager, my bad, is all that happens is if we turn on Ange and he gets sacked, we just bring in some other person to do exactly the same thing that's happened again and get nowhere. All these managers that have gone on to win big things or challenge have been given time.
Yeah.
They have been given time. And Arteta now, he can say, do you know what, this game we need to smash and grab it. We need to sit back. We need to take our chance. One chance will come, and we have to make sure we take it. And they have the players with the footballing IQ, the discipline, and the manager to see it and do it.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah. And if we want Ange to succeed, it's time, and he needs the players to be brought in. Because if we bring another manager in, everyone will go, well, hey, we've got this manager in, and I guarantee it, 18 months, 2 years' time, we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. And in fact, the only example where it's been different to that I can think of is Unai Emery at Aston Villa, because basically he turned it round just like that, and then the momentum has kept going. But I completely agree, and I'm glad to hear actually, Brian, that you're not going against Ange. I just want to bring a quote from Ange. He was asked about set pieces. He says, I know for some reason people think I don't care about set pieces, and it's a narrative that you can keep going on for ages and ages. I understand that. Like I said, we work on them all the time like we do for every other team. You know that they're a threat. As I said, for the most part, we handled them really well today, but we switched off for one and we paid a heavy price, and you learn from that and you move on. But it is what it is. You know, it's my burden to carry, and I'm happy to do that. It's not like I've always said, for me, there's a bigger picture that's at play here that's much more important than the finer details of us getting where we want to. For us, the way forward is to try to turn the football we're playing now into something meaningful. And I saw another quote from him saying where, basically, similarly to the other games, he felt that it was our inability to turn good opportunities going forward into clear-cut chances. That was the reason we lost the game, more than just conceding one set piece.
So on the back of that, I wanted to ask Brian then. He said there it's about switching off. This now seems to be a constant theme then. It's not about the set pieces then. It's about switching off. You look at every goal we've conceded this season, that one switch off.
Correct.
Right? In every single... Twice against Newcastle, we switched off after having all the ball. And then Arsenal today, and then Leicester. Is that now becoming the bigger concern then?
Well, you look at it, if Andrew's saying, like you said, they are working on set pieces, and then you've got to look and say, this is more on the players, isn't it? You've got to look at it and say, if the players keep switching off on these things, and they are paying attention to detail on this, then you've got to take some responsibility. And like you said, Marlon, bro, it keeps... So we keep switching off. And this is where I keep going to it. When like I said at the beginning, Dan Kelly, when he says... teams, the big teams that need to get the job done, get it done. Whether
like
they're
Arsenal,
playing bad or whatever.
Yeah.
You look at it as well. You can look at Chelsea yesterday. Bournemouth was battering them.
Yeah.
Battering them. And Cuckoo got one chance, bang, game over, see you later.
But look at today. Let's look at today, right? Arsenal have not played well today. They've not played well. From what we saw of last season of Arsenal, they've not played well. Yeah. But they didn't have to. What they've done is come, defended, and got the job done. Now,
same as Newcastle last week. Same as Newcastle.
So it's becoming a bit of an issue where, and I've said this, there's only so much time that good performances. When you start losing these games in good performances, these good performances will stop, and you'll just keep losing games. So. What do you do next?
I agree with you, and I tell you what, Spurs also need to take James Maddison off media work, because all he does is flap his gums and run his mouth, and then he's all talk.
He's all good talk. Days, good old days when we didn't have internet, and if you'd done an interview in Australia.
Marlon, we signed James Maddison, and in the international build-up, I saw so many people on social media put up these wonderful compilations of his free kicks, his long-range shooting, his goals from outside the area, his devastating top corner. Where are they?
Yeah.
His set pieces from James Maddison has had a couple of games this season where he's been better than he was last season after the injury.
Do you know what, Brian? I'm just going to counteract that for a minute. I actually thought some of these deliveries today, there was certain, like, if you look at some of the chances we had, so you take Solanke's header, that was from a James Maddison cross. I believe that one of Van der Ven's chances was from James Maddison's cross. So actually, when he's getting on the ball, actually, he is delivering, but he's just not getting on it enough, I think. And because, look, if the last 10 minutes of that game, would you have taken him off?
No, but do you know, I would have for Bergvall, but do you know what it is as well? And I'll say, like you said, he put in a couple of good deliveries. Amazing. In fact, I want to see a 90-minute before. You're part of the leadership team or whatever you want to call it. Why do not any of the Spurs leadership team, I'll include Romero, this is a North London derby with 10 minutes. Why are you not grabbing people and going, fix up, literally motivating them and drumming it into them that we need to give everything we've got. It was such a lethargic second half performance, and you just want more in this game. You want more. You need more. You should be giving more. It's just that there seems to be no leaders on that pitch.
I think I said during the game, I just felt like Arsenal had so many bodies behind the ball and then to add to that, Spurs were afraid, I think. This is what I think. I think everything you're saying is right, actually, Brian, but I think Spurs were afraid that if they tried to pop it about really quickly in between all those players very narrow, the moment they lost it, that's where Arsenal get it out to Saka. And I think they would almost... Maybe Ange will come out and say this at some point this week. He might say, actually, we are too worried about them on the transition because the only way we would have ever broken them down was to do it quicker and be a bit more buzzy about it. But who knows, mate? Look, it's...
Barnaby, I have one more thing to this year. This is what also got to me a bit. I don't know how you two feel about it or the chat. I would remember back in the days of the Pochettinos, the Joses, if they had a left-back, i.e. Timber, on a yellow card... They would get a winger flying at them to try and take them on, to bring on the foul. Second yellow, you're off. They would target that area and go, right, Timber's on a yellow card. He's gettable. Go. When you got someone like Brennan Johnson, who is all about the pace, every time he could have run at him, he just checked in because he's low on confidence.
Yeah.
And Odegaard when he came on, or Kulu when he came on. Like what Jose did when Adama Traore was taking the piss out of us at Wolves. He kept changing the players to get a yellow card to knock him out of the game. Why when we've got a left back there on a yellow card early, are we not putting a winger on him and just say run at him? Just absolutely run at him and commit him to the tackle.
I actually think, Brian, what you're talking about is something that I've mentioned a few times today, which is just the maturity of Arsenal is so much further down the line than we are, like in terms of those little fouls, the little faking their injuries to get their tactical talks from Arteta. There's a picture of Arteta stopping the ball when it's on the pitch with his hand because he's outside of his technical area. It's all of the coaching staff complaining to the fourth official. It's all of these dark arts which show a level of maturity where Tottenham are just kids at the moment. They are.
Yeah, but the manager isn't, Barnaby. The manager isn't. And surely if you got a guy in a yellow card, the manager's wide enough now to know, go get a play.
I agree, but I actually think this is where one thing I would probably say that maybe Ange is a bit overwhelmed with the level of the Premier League because he's still feeling like most of his time has to be spent trying to drum into these players how to score goals. And actually, it doesn't seem to me like Spurs are concentrating on any of that kind of stuff at all, because that's where it comes into what you mentioned about leadership. Christian Romero is smart enough to be able to say to everybody else, this is what we do when I'm playing for Argentina. We literally pinch everyone and we make everyone hit us and, end up throwing bottles into the crowd after games and stuff like that. But it's just not quite happening yet. I don't think Ange wants us to be that kind of team. He wants it to be a little bit pretty. And unfortunately, when you come up against sides like Arsenal today, it makes it look a bit men against boysy as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, Brian.
Agreed.
Well,
Guys,
try and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, I will do. I'm going to hospital for surgery tomorrow, so hopefully when I go to sleep, I don't have to rewind that nightmare. So, have a good day, people, and enjoy the rest of it. Levy out.
Okay, I hope the operation goes well, Brian.
I love Brian.
Deary me.
He's brilliant.
The worst thing about that was he wasn't even due for an operation before today's result, but then he called them up. He said, get me in tomorrow. I need something removed. Okay, Jory is up next. Thank you for waiting, Jory. How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, considering. I'm happy that it's over now.
Jory, take us tactically through why we lost that game.
I mean, tactically, I don't think it was too much tactically. To be honest, it's more to do with maturity. The front line is not mature enough. I will say one thing, which is a big thing on Ant, is that if we're going to be playing Son like this, that's a huge mistake. We should have sold them this summer if this is how we're going to be playing Son. Son, of course, has a lot of responsibility himself, but just, setting up in that kind of, trying to use Son as any other winger is not the way to go, So I was disappointed in seeing, even though I think the instruction had been for Sonny to shoot, and that's what we saw him kind of fumbling with, trying to find some space and stuff, and being out of position a lot and so on, But Sonny had a really awful game, to be honest.
He doesn't seem to, Jory, sorry to interrupt, but he doesn't seem to even listen to the instruction to get in at the back post, does he? When the ball's at the other side, he seems to just
No.
he seems to kind of just kind of trot late into the box.
Exactly, and to be honest, even though I know Sonny is always kind of a stand-up guy and does the right thing and all of that, to be honest, I'm fearing that Sonny is not buying this. He's not really on board with it anymore, or I don't know. Because the last part of the game was really, I thought, if anybody should be getting the troops up to rile them up, it would be Sonny, and he was really one of the most passive, non-engaged players in our team. So, and Cootie was very unfocused, I felt, even though he had some amazing tackles and, still world class, but he had quite a lot of unfocused moments, I think. And of course, I mean, for me, I've said it before, Barnaby, like zone defense is, I don't know of any big success story that's built on zone defense. You need to man mark, I think. Even if the man marking is gonna cost you a little bit on the transition, or maybe stretch some individuals more than others and so on. I like, especially with a young squad, zone defense is too complicated. It's too confusing. You're inviting too much chaos in my view.
But Romero was trying to man mark Gabriel, wasn't he? He just lost him, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that for sure, the way we set up for corners and set pieces is definitely improved a lot, but he lost them exactly, and also doesn't help that our own players are blocking Vicario being able to
No, that was mental.
Yeah. So
that's like literally, imagine being that nerdy Arsenal set piece coach tonight, where you're just like, oh, actually, they did it for you.
Exactly.
Spurs players actually blocking your own goalkeeper.
At least he had money today.
I think they thought they were protecting him, but turned out the other way, really. So,
Jory, can you see just to go back to what you said about Sonny then? Can you see a world where Ange will ever drop Son?
No, I don't think so. I think we've made a big mistake. If this is what we're playing, Sonny, I love Sonny. He's definitely been one of my favorite players of all time in the club. But if this is how we're going to play with him, then we should have sold him this summer. If he's going to be playing a full season like this, he's going to lose a lot of value, and we're not going to get the end result out of him as we should be getting. But it's also on Sonny, of course. Sonny is a senior player there, and he should be demanding that the coach kind of work around him and uses his strengths, So, but I don't think Ange is that kind of a coach anyway. But I just feel in general I mean, we're kind of today. I don't feel like it was any tactical mistake. I was happy to see him go with Kula in the middle, like we talked about on your show, Barnaby. And
that's right.
And I think it's just down to personnel and the maturity of it and the quality of it. And I have to pick up you, Marlon. Yeah, I thought your post game take was spot on, to be honest. And I feel also. I was one of the first, I think, kind of at least regulars to be fairly critical of Ants, and I've gone over what that was about, and I can do it again. But now I've seen Ants adapt and be more tactical about things. I'm kind of happy with it again. But of course, in general, it's a question of if this is a viable strategy at all, and if, everybody's always referring to Ants' past success. And if we have to go by that, well, Ants in his past, these success stories in his past, he wasn't losing to this amount. Like, we're losing a lot, and we're conceding crazy, So there is definitely not the old Ants story just repeating itself. There's definitely a new twist to it. And I've always thought that in general, and just like we talk about players, it's like, yeah, he's amazing in the Ligue 1 and he's amazing in La Liga, but let's see how he does in the Premier League. Yeah. That, of course, goes 10 times more for managers, I feel like, and I do feel like I've always, kind of thought maybe Ants Ball is too one-sided or one-focused for the Premier League. But also, I'm also starting to think maybe that's not what he's trying to do. He's just trying to get the shape absolutely 100% correct before he goes into the tactics. And then I'm happy with it as well. But my big point, Barnaby and Marlon, is that I completely agree with you, Marlon. There's no point in changing managers. And if we come to a point where Ants is fired and pushed out of the club, there is nothing really for us to engage with other than seeing a change of ownership. It is definitely down to the way the club is run, unless I'm holding a slight hope that Ants might actually fit this ownership. That's kind of my only hope. But we're definitely not in good. It doesn't look great at this moment, But I'm not freaking out either, even though I hate to see Arsenal kind of write their season at our ground and like. Did you say, Barnaby, they've won more at our stadium than we have?
Yeah, they've now won more than we've won at theirs. Yep.
That's disgraceful, really. And to be honest, Coventry lost now, and Levy will start getting nervous.
He'll get the trigger finger, won't he? Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I wanted to ask you about that, Jory, then. I'll be doing the watch-along here for the Coventry game. Do you think Ange... if I'm in Ange's shoes now, I think he has to play his first team for that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think he has to basically play his best player. If he brings Fraser Forster in, if he brings Fraser Forster in on Wednesday and he drops in a clanger, then people are going to go for Ange big time.
If he doesn't go strong, that will definitely be, for me, my final kind of proof that Ange is a little bit too naive and doesn't really get it, to be honest.
But can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So regarding strength, right? It's the players that are current. So when we say strong, are we looking at a similar lineup to today? Because that lineup has been letting him down for the last how many games? Is it a case of it needs to be a mix of both? Because we actually now need to see the new signings to see if they can actually be on this level at some point. So where do we go? Because like you said, Sonny, does he need to play against Coventry if this is the system that he's going to be in? Because he's going to be there's no point seeing it against Coventry because
maybe my instinct.
I think Sonny should sit. Sorry, Barnaby, you go.
I was just going to say, just through my head, I'm just going to go through my head and think what I imagine he's actually going to do on Wednesday night now. I think I'm really nervous he's going to play Fraser fucking Forster, I have to say. But let's take that out of the equation. I think he's going to play Spence instead of Porro. I think he'll play Dragoshin instead of Romero. He'll let Van der Ven get some more minutes in his legs. He'll play Ben Davis instead of Udogie. And then I think he'll play Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall in the middle. I don't know who with.
I think he might play Regulon,
No, he can't play Reguilon. He hates Reguilon.
Yeah, but he's had
hates
to register
Reguilon.
him.
And then up front, I think he'll play team over. I think he'll probably do like a 6-5 or a 7-4.
Johnson
change.
has to play.
What do you think, Jory?
I think you might be right. I think he probably has made some promises already that he's going to honor, and
Yeah.
but if I was managing, I'll tell you that I would tweak, I would substitute a couple of players, but I would put out the same team and the same setup basically, simply for them to get it over the line. This would be an opportunity for them to feel what it's supposed to feel like when everything is clicking and they're finishing all of it, and then they can come back into the Premier League and repeat that. But I do kind of tend to agree with you. He's probably already kind of set a certain cup team, and that's what he's going to play. But if he doesn't bring a strong team for this game, he's naive, and his bravado is not serving him well. Then I don't think that will show me that he doesn't realize how quickly things escalate in the Tottenham.
Yeah, in the top level. Some people just saying in the chat, and have been for a few hours now actually, Ruben Amorim, the sporting coach. If Ange were to continue on this bad form, he's quite an attacking coach. Obviously, he did play Porro with him.
Does he play?
I want to
back
put
as well?
my 2 cents in for that, actually, guys.
does,
But
Go on, Jory.
I would definitely reiterate Marlon's point that it makes no difference really, or any point of changing managers.
I agree.
After this, but let's say the culture's right and whatever. The next guy I would really want to see, and which I would have a bit of hope for, would be Gasperini. I think having a front foot guy that's been in a defensive league and been developing youngsters like no tomorrow would be a pretty good fit.
Was he the Atalanta guy? Who's he?
Yeah,
Atalanta,
he's the Atalanta coach. Yeah, and the only kind of problem I see is that is maybe like the Italian culture versus our boardroom English culture. Of course, we've seen that clash before, but yeah, in terms of playing, like I would love to see that one at some point. And of course, I want to see Potts back at some point, but I want this club to be fully healed by then, to fully be a football club where we're going for on-field success and not only boardroom success, So, and I'm not saying that the boardroom's not doing anything in that regard. I'm just saying the latter is the top priority. We need to switch it, or at least have it on par.
All right, Jory, thank you so much for calling in, mate. Really appreciate it. And
take care, guys. Great show as always.
Thank you, mate. Try and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We've got about kind of just 10 minutes, a bit more left of this, guys. Let's speak to our next caller, Tom. Thank you for waiting, Tom. How are you feeling?
Yeah, bit disappointed, to be fair, lads. I'm just double checking you can hear me clearly.
Yeah, all good, mate. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed today. The way we're set up is so frustrating. I really don't understand the obsession with the inverting Porro constantly. When there's an opportunity to cross the ball, he's sort of more central in near into the midfield, and we don't, and there's an opportunity to cross, and then that opportunity goes out to Johnson, and we know what happens there. It's frustrating, like positionally. Maddison, why is he constantly just so deep? He's supposed to be our creative spark, and he's somehow the deepest midfielder on the pitch, and he's constantly pointing his fingers where to go. But and then all the attacks just start to stagnate. Romero, how many times do you have to take the touches? Like, just release the ball and play, and he just doesn't. He takes 5 or 6 touches, doesn't progress the ball quick enough, and then Arsenal can just sort of sit back and enjoy the ride because they have nothing to do. Because literally all they have to do is screen and watch Tottenham play from left to right.
Yeah.
And there's no, attacking impetus, no quality crossing at all. And then when you come onto the bench, Timo Werner, what does he really offer when there's 11, 10 men behind the ball? Nothing, absolutely nothing, and it's just so frustrating to see. I think it was the Irish Hotspur mentioned. We go through these signings and we sign Brennan Johnson. Okay, yeah, I like Brennan Johnson, but he's come from Nottingham Forest. Probably doesn't have much sort of career experience. He's young, but you never know what happened. Then we go and sign Odebear, a relegated Burnley side. And they weren't cheap either. Brennan 47.5 million, Odebear 30 million. You put those two fees together, you go get a quality player like an Eze, and that's a transformation. But I don't know, it's just frustrating to see, lads. I'm sorry to say it, but
it's all good. Can I just say one thing? Because I've just seen a quote. Fabrizio Romano's done a quote that Ange has just come out with. He says, when asked if Spurs can win a trophy this season, Ange said, "I don't usually win things. I always win things in my second year."
He's never worked.
Like, he's doubling down, Tom. How do you feel about that?
I really don't know what to make of it, really. I think he needs a little bit of a reality check. I mean, at the moment, I'm really not agreeing with even the speculation of talking about him sort of, getting the sack. I don't agree with that whatsoever. I'm very much a firm Ange believer, but he needs to sort of, I agree with you, Barnaby, he needs to sort of watch what he says, because it just comes back to bite him on the arse every single bloody time, and he just needs to watch it, because it will come him back on the arse. And are we going to win a trophy this year? I mean, I'd rather us throw all of our eggs in the basket, go and win that bloody Europa League. I wouldn't care if we finished 15th in the league and we won that Europa League, and put all of our eggs into that basket, because what are we going to do in the league? Nothing. Every single team in the Premier League knows how we're going to play. The blueprint's there, as you said. Sit back, corner. Have we learned from it from last season? No. And I just can't see the tactical awareness changing. As you said at the start, or at the end of the match, sorry. Ange likes to change his backroom staff. Proper teams, as you mentioned, have a solid backroom staff. They all know each other inside out. Mm-hmm. And, we've got Mile Jurdenak, who's a second-rate player at Women Palace. I don't know. What's he going to add to the team? We need really, to look at that and sort of, well, we certainly need a set-piece coach, that's for sure. I mean, my God, I'm always 17 for...
Tom, you're just cutting out a little bit. You're just cutting out a little bit. Let me just check that we can still hear you, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've got you back. Moving forward, Tom, obviously this week is now looking like a very, very, very important week for Ange Postecoglou. Obviously, Coventry away. Coventry did nearly make it to the FA Cup final. They were one unlucky VAR decision from beating Man United in the semi-final of the Cup last season. Do they get fans in Highfield Road these days? I don't think they do for league games, but will they for a big game like this? Not even sure.
That shows your age, calling it Highfield Road.
Do they even play? Do they still play at that ground? What's
Rico
it called?
Arena.
The Rico Arena, right. So that's difficult. And he said, I just read you that quote, because if he's saying that and then he plays Fraser Forster and a load of kids on Wednesday night, then he's at serious danger for the second year in a row of going out the first hurdle of the Carabao Cup, isn't he?
Of course. I mean, and our away record is just horrendous recently. I mean, I can't even remember the last time we won a bloody game away.
Villa.
And, Coventry, so long ago.
Yeah.
And Coventry, they'll be well up for it, and they're not a bad side. We got to be careful, and I think we should go full strength for it just to be sure.
Yeah, I do as well.
We're really careful.
And then Brentford next week. Marlon said, and I quote, "We'll definitely beat Brentford next week because they're not a top 10 side." Tom, are you as sure as Marlon is?
Well, if it's at home, then yeah. But if it's away, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's at home. That's why I said it. If it was away, I would never be saying that.
Okay, well, probably Brennan Johnson will come up with a couple of assists like he does against his, the mid-section of teams. But when it comes to scoring goals against bloody top 6 plus, we don't stand a chance.
Do you know where it feels like we are? So I'm just thinking aloud now. It feels like where we are now when Klopp was kind of in a similar time period for Liverpool, but then Liverpool did what they needed to do and they spent 150 million quid on Van Dijk and the goalkeeper. And we're going to need, aren't we? And it probably won't happen in January realistically, but we're going to need those at least two extra players who can really make the difference. And at this point, I have to say, and I'm feeling a bit negative, but I'm worried that Ange won't get the time to see that through.
See, the problem is, and everyone always uses the Klopp as an example, and in a league form, yes, but Klopp was doing something that Ange ain't doing. He got to 2 FA Cup finals in his first season and a third one.
Right.
And that saved his bacon in the sense of Liverpool fans or Liverpool board gave him that extra time because he was getting to the fight. Even though he was losing them, he was doing well in the cups and everyone could see what the process is going.
And of course, Arteta won the cup in his first season.
He won the cup and that gave him a 3-year gap. At the moment, with Ange, he's got nothing to back him up at the moment. So he obviously will either need, like you said, a Europa League run, or he needs a Carabao Cup run or an FA Cup run. He needs one of them because the league right now, is going to be outsourced. It's done. Two losses already against 2 big sides. It ain't for us. There ain't going to be an improvement this season. We can see it. So he has to. Like you said, he has to put all his eggs in one basket.
Yeah, I agree. It's just you've got to focus on the Europa League and see how we can go from there. And the Premier League's done, in my opinion.
Tom, mate, thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate it, mate. Try and find a way to enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And
cheers, lads. And
come on, you Spurs. Cheers,
Spurs.
Mate. Sam, we got any more? No more. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's watch-along and then the post-match reaction show and the post-match fan show. Look, it's horrible, isn't it? It is horrible, and they keep turning us over at our place as well. And under Pochettino... under Pochettino, and even Jose actually and Conte, most of the time the home team in the North London derby would win, but now we've lost 3 on the spin and it's not good. But I think small mercies, small victories. We have an opportunity in the next 7 days to get 2 wins on the bounce and try and put it behind us, or try and start to put it behind us. I will be back here for the Coventry away game on Wednesday night. It's a big game for Tottenham Hotspur now. It's a big game for those forward players, as well as Ange Postecoglou, but for those forward players to start trying to click.
Solanke will play.
Yeah, he has to.
He has to play. I don't care look, at the end of the day, I don't care if it's Brennan Johnson, Odegaard, Son, whoever's next to him, but Solanke needs to play. That for me.
And I think just most importantly, we need to win that game and then turn over Brentford and then try to go to Old Trafford and get a win against a poor United team, but they always turn us over. But anyway, guys, I'm trying to find some positives. It was horrible today. Arsenal kind of bullied us, I think. And although they didn't cut us open, we didn't make any chances, really.
Yeah, and as a lot of people have been saying, the people that watch my channel, I'm very bad luck on these North London derbies, so I might have to stop doing them. I'm going to see a few people that have coming to us and they know, they've seen my face. I've got to stop doing them. And if there are any non-Spurs fans in the chat, come over to my channel on a Wednesday, Spurs Kings TV, for the rival show. It's one not to be missed. You're going to love it. And any Spurs fans, come to me on the Tuesday because we're going to break this game down and Ash will break it down perfectly.
Top man. All right, guys, make sure you subscribe to We Are Tottenham TV if you don't already. Drop this video a like and try and find a way to enjoy your week, and hopefully Spurs can make us a bit happier on Wednesday night. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.